Kex'tar's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among his kind. The Vraxian hunter crouched behind crystalline formations on the moon's surface, watching the pathetic human settlement below through his bio-enhanced vision. 50 years of professional hunting across 17 star systems, and they were sending him after these pink soft-skinned primates. Command! This is insult, he growled into his unit, his translator struggling with the concept of wounded pride. Kex'tar does not hunt children. The reply crackled back through subs. Credits are credits, hunter. The guildmaster wants human specimens for the arena. Live ones. Should be simple enough for someone of your reputation. Kex'tar's reputation, right? Most feared predator in the Outer Rim. Claws that could slice through starship hulls. Regenerative biology that made him practically immortal. Neural implants that processed combat data faster than most species could blink. He'd single-handedly brought down the warrior clans of Thirok Prime, harvested the crystal-bone sharks of Nexus Deep, and once spent 3 months hunting the shape-shifting phantoms of the void reaches, and now they wanted him to capture some humans. He observed the settlement through his scope. Typical primitive infrastructure. Metal shelters, crude energy barriers, maybe 200 inhabitants, based on heat signatures. No heavy weapons, no orbital defenses. They probably didn't even know he was here. This was going to be embarrassing. Kex'tar activated his personal stealth field and began his descent toward the colony. The familiar thrill of the hunt coursed through his system, enhanced by the combat stimulants his body naturally produced. His prey drive kicked in, pupils dilating, heart rate increasing, muscle fibers tensing for explosive action. 15 minutes later, Kex'tar was hanging upside down from his own ankle, suspended by some kind of monomolecular wire that had sliced through his supposedly impenetrable armor like it was tissue paper. Well, that's embarrassing, said a voice from the shadows. A human female stepped into view. Brown skin, dark hair, pulled back in a practical ponytail, wearing what looked like modified mining gear. She couldn't have been more than 5.5 feet tall, maybe 130 pounds. Her weapon was a simple plasma rifle, probably cobbled together from salvaged parts. You know, she continued, studying him with the casual interest of someone examining an interesting rock. We've been expecting you for about 6 months now. Kex'tar twisted in his restraints, his regenerative systems already working to heal the cuts from the wire. Impossible. Guild intelligence is perfect. No one expects Kex'tar the Reaper. Is that seriously what you call yourself? The human laughed, and Kex'tar felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Confusion, let me guess. You looked at our settlement from orbit, saw some metal buildings and energy barriers, figured we were easy prey. You are easy prey. Right, so easy that you're currently hanging upside down like a piñata. I'm Zara Kim, by the way, Colony Defense Coordinator. And you're Kex'tar Vraxian, Apex Hunter, registration number VX7742. Wanted 4 crimes against sentient life in 14 systems. The confusion was getting worse. How do you know Kex'tar's registration? Because we've been studying you for 47 years, 3 months, and 16 days. Zara pulled out a small device that projected a holographic display. See, humans have this weird trait: when something tries to eat us, we get curious about it. The display showed detailed anatomical diagrams of Vraxian physiology, combat patterns, behavioral analysis, psychological profiles. Kex'tar saw his own face rotating in 3-dimensional space, with notes about his preferred hunting methods, his regenerative capabilities, even his favorite post-hunt rituals. Your species first showed up in human space about 50 years ago, Zara continued. Grabbed a few colonists from the Kepler settlements. Standard procedure for you guys, right? Harvest some primitives for the arena, maybe use the rest for genetic experiments. Kex'tar, silence was Asa, enough. Except those colonists. They had families, friends, people who cared about them, so we started asking questions, like, who are these 7-foot-old lizard people with the superiority complex? Where do they come from? What makes them tick? She gestured, and the hologram shifted to show a star map with dozens of marked locations. Took us about a decade to figure out your guild's territory, another 5 years to crack your communication protocols. By year 20, we had infiltrated your information networks. By year 30, we had detailed behavioral profiles on every major hunter in your organization. This is impossible. Humans are primitive. Humans are prey. Yeah, that's what everyone keeps saying. Zara's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. Funny thing about being underestimated, it gives you a lot of room to work. She touched another control, and the hologram showed footage of previous hunter raids on human colonies. Kex'tar watched in growing horror as, one by one, the raids failed. Hunters trapped in elaborate snares. Entire hunting parties disappearing into carefully prepared ambushes. Some hunters simply changed, stopped hunting, started protecting the very humans they were supposed to harvest. See, we figured out something interesting about your species, Zara said. Your pack hunters who've been forced into individualistic competition by your guild system. It's actually causing massive psychological stress. Most of you are clinically insane by human standards. Kex'tar is not insane. When's the last time you had a conversation with another member of your species that wasn't about killing something? Kex'tar opened his mouth to respond, then closed it. When's the last time you created something instead of destroying it? When's the last time you helped someone who couldn't offer you anything in return? The silence stretched uncomfortably. That's what I thought. Zara's expression softened slightly. The thing is, we don't actually hate you guys. We're just tired of being hunted. So we came up with a solution. She pulled out a small injector, nanite therapy. Repairs the damage your guild's conditioning has done to your neural pathways. Restores your natural pack bonding instincts. Think of it as debugging your personality. I want to give you the choice. See, that's another thing about humans. We believe in free will, even for people who've been trying to eat us. Kex'tar hung there, literally and figuratively suspended between his old life and whatever this human was offering. The smart play was obvious. Pretend to go along with her plan, wait for an opportunity to escape, then return with a full hunting fleet and glass this entire moon. Except something was nagging at him. A memory from his childhood, before the guild conditioning, before the arena, before he became the Reaper. He'd had a clutchmate once. They'd built things together, sandcastles on the beaches of Vraxia Prime. She'd died in the guild trials, of course. They all did, except for the ones strong enough to become hunters. What happens to Kex'tar? Honestly, I don't know. The neural reconstruction is different for every individual. Some hunters go back to their home worlds and try to change things from the inside. Some stay with human colonies and work protection detail. A few have even joined our research teams. And if Kex'tar refuses, Zara's expression hardened, then you go back to your ship with a message for the guild. Leave human space alone. We're not prey anymore. And you would trust Kex'tar to deliver this message? No, but I'd trust the orbital defense platform that's been tracking your ships as you entered this system to make sure you deliver it. Kex'tar's enhanced senses had detected no such platform, which either meant the humans had developed stealth technology beyond anything in guild databases, or you were bluffing, maybe. Want to find out? The hunter found himself genuinely uncertain for the first time in decades. Uncertainty was not a feeling he enjoyed. It made him want to lash out, to reassert dominance through violence. But something deeper was stirring, a curiosity that felt almost human. Tell Kex'tar about the others. The hunters who changed. Zara's smile returned. There's a Beltharian named Kex'tar who runs a protection service for refugee colonies. Used to be one of your guild's top predators. Now he specializes in keeping his former colleagues away from civilian populations. She gestured again, and the hologram showed a massive armored figure standing protectively over a group of human children. The creature's posture was completely different from the aggressive hunting stance Kex'tar recognized. This was a guardian, not a predator. Then this she figured out that her species' regenerative abilities make them perfect for disaster relief. She saved more lives in the past 5 years than she took in the previous 50. More images. Hunters working alongside humans. Building instead of destroying. Protecting instead of harvesting. The interesting thing, Zara continued, is that once the neural conditioning is removed, most of your species actually prefer cooperation to competition. You're naturally social creatures. The guild has been forcing you to act against your own nature for so long that you've forgotten what you really are. Kex'tar felt something crack inside his chest, not his ribs, something deeper, something that had been locked away since his childhood. If Kex'tar accepts his treatment, does he stop being I don't know, do you want to? The question hung in the air between them. Kex'tar had built his entire identity around being the galaxy's perfect predator. Without that, who was he? The humans who study us, he said slowly. How many of them have we killed? Over the years, about 12,000 colonists, another 4,000 researchers, soldiers, and civilians in various raids. The numbers hit him like a physical blow. 16,000 lives, 16,000 individuals with families, dreams, futures, all gone because the guild wanted arena specimens and genetic material. Kex'tar's monster. Maybe you're a victim who became a perpetrator because that was the only way to survive in a system designed to break you. Zara's voice was surprisingly gentle. The question is, what do you want to be moving forward? Kex'tar closed his eyes. In the darkness behind his lids, he saw his sister's face, saw the sandcastles they'd built together, saw the moment the guild trainers had told him that weakness was death, that compassion was failure, that only the strongest deserved to survive. He'd believed them, he'd had to believe them, because the alternative was admitting that everything he'd done, everyone he'd killed, had been for nothing. Give Kex'tar the injection. Zara blinked in surprise. Just like that. Just like that. She approached cautiously. Injector ready. This is going to feel strange. The nanites will need about 6 hours to complete the neural reconstruction. You might experience some memory fragmentation, personality fluctuations, that sort of thing. Will it hurt? Probably, but not as much as living with what you've done for the rest of your life. The injection was surprisingly painless. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Kex'tar felt something shifting inside his skull. Pathways that had been chemically blocked for decades suddenly opening. Memories flooding back. Emotions he'd thought were weaknesses returning with startling intensity. He thought about his sister. He thought about the 16,000 humans he'd helped kill. He thought about the hunters who'd chosen to become protectors instead of predators. And for the first time in 50 years, Kex'tar began to cry. 6 hours later, he was a different person. Not completely. He still had his memories, his skills, his physical capabilities, but the driving need to hunt, to dominate, to prove his superiority through violence, in its place was something he'd almost forgotten existed. Empathy, the ability to see other beings as individuals rather than prey, the capacity to build instead of destroy. How do you feel? Zara asked. Kex'tar considered the question seriously. Like Kex'tar has been sleeping for 50 years and just woke up. Good, because we have a proposition for you. She led him to the colony's central building, where a dozen other humans were waiting. Men and women of various ages, all with the practical no-nonsense demeanor of people who'd learned to survive in dangerous circumstances. We're not just defense coordinators, Zara explained. We're part of a larger organization, the Human Diaspora Recovery Project. Diaspora. Long story short, humans have been in space a lot longer than most species realize. About 40,000 years, give or take. The thing is, not all of us stayed human. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. We've been tracking genetic markers across the galaxy for the past century. One of the other humans continued. Turns out, a lot of species that consider themselves naturally evolved apex predators actually descend from early human colonies that adapted to hostile environments. Kex'tar's mind reeled. You were saying. We're saying the Vraxian species is approximately 67% genetically human. Your ancestors were colonists who crash-landed on your homeworld about 15,000 years ago. The hostile environment selected for increased size, regenerative capabilities, and enhanced predatory instincts. But how? Evolution is funny that way. Give it enough time and selective pressure, and humans can become just about anything. Zara pulled up another holographic display. 83% human. Nexus hunters, 91%. The shape-shifting void phantoms you mentioned. They're almost pure human, just with some really interesting genetic modifications. Kex'tar stared at the data, his reconstructed neural pathways struggling to process this information. The Guild knows this. The Guild doesn't know anything. They're too busy maintaining their superiority complex to ask hard questions about their own origins. Zara's smile was sharp again. But we've been asking those questions for a very long time. What does this mean for Kex'tar? It means you have a choice. You can go back to your old life, hunting and killing for the arena. You can try to reform the Guild from the inside, though that's probably a suicide mission, or ... You can help us reunite the human diaspora. There are millions of beings out there who've forgotten their origins, who've been twisted into predators by hostile environments and social conditioning. They don't have to stay that way. Kex'tar looked around the room at the faces watching him. These humans had every reason to hate him. He'd spent decades hunting their kind. But instead of hatred, he saw something else in their eyes. What would Kex'tar do? What you're already doing. Show other hunters that there's another way. Help us identify isolated populations of evolved humans. Work to rebuild the connections that were lost when our species scattered across the galaxy. And if the Guild tries to stop us, Zara's smile turned predatory in a way that would have made Kex'tar's old self proud. Let them try. They think they're apex predators. They have no idea what humans are capable of when we work together. Kex'tar felt something he hadn't experienced in decades, a sense of purpose that had nothing to do with killing or domination. For the first time since his sister's death, he felt like he belonged somewhere. Kex'tar accepts. Good, because you're going to love what we've got planned next. 3 months later, Kex'tar stood in the cargo bay of a human transport vessel, watching as another former hunter received the nanite treatment. Kex'tar, the Beltharian he'd heard about, was there too, along with a dozen other converted predators. They called themselves the Reunion Fleet now, former hunters who'd remembered their humanity and decided to help others do the same. It was dangerous work. The Guild had put bounties on all of them. Several colonies had been attacked in retaliation, but it was working. Every month, more hunters made the choice to change. Every month, more isolated populations of evolved humans were contacted and offered the chance to reconnect with their lost heritage. How many ships are we up to now? Kex'tar asked. Zara, 47 active vessels, another 38 in construction. The Tau Ceti shipyards are working around the clock. She grinned. Turns out, when you give people the choice between being predators and being protectors, most of them choose protection. Kex'tar nodded, watching as the newly treated hunter opened his eyes for the first time without the Guild's conditioning. The confusion, the pain, the slow dawning realization of what he'd become. Kex'tar remembered it all. Do you ever regret it? He asked Zara. What? Giving up the simple life of hiding from galactic apex predators. Trusting us, believing we could change. Zara was quiet for a moment. You know what the funny thing is? Humans aren't actually apex predators. We're not the strongest or the fastest or the most naturally armed, but we're the most adaptable. And we're the best at working together. She gestured around the cargo bay where former hunters were helping each other adjust to their new lives. This is what makes us dangerous. Not our claws or our weapons or our individual strength. Our ability to take the worst of us and help them become the best of us. Kex'tar considered this. And the Guild will learn they can adapt or they can become extinct. Those are the only two options in a universe where cooperation beats competition every time. Through the viewport, Kex'tar could see the stars. Somewhere out there, other hunters were still pursuing their prey. Other evolved humans were living as predators, unaware of their true heritage. Other communities were hiding in fear, waiting for someone to come along and change everything. It was going to be a long war, but for the first time in his life, Kex'tar was fighting for something instead of against it, and that, he thought, made all the difference. The former apex predator smiled, showing teeth that had once been used for tearing flesh and were now used for something far more dangerous. Communication, connection. The galaxy's hunters had never been ready for humans, but then again, humans had been playing the long game for 40,000 years, and they were just getting started.